Top 5 mini split mistakes. Every year, mini splits get installed, but they get installed improperly. In today's video, I'm going to give you the top mistakes that keep happening, whether you're too lazy or unwilling to read the manual, or you just get in a hurry. Today, we're going to cover those mistakes, and I'm going to give you the guidance needed so you can avoid them. You're watching HVAC Tips for Technicians / Homeowners. I'm Tad. This is Taddy Digest. Let's go. The most common problem I find in the field when I have to go work on a mini split is low refrigerant charge. Why is it low on charge? Why am I having to put refrigerant inside this mini split that may be brand new, maybe a few months old? Because it's leaking. Why is it leaking? The top mistake happened, and that is nobody performed a nitrogen pressure test. Before you pull a vacuum, before you open up the valves, you always perform a nitrogen pressure test. This is where I have a nitrogen tank, a regulator, my hoses connected from this port right here, and then my gauge is connected to the access fitting on the mini split. And what I do is I usually go by the manufacturer specs when adding nitrogen. Some specs say 300 psig, some are upwards of 600 psig for that nitrogen pressure test. So I put the nitrogen in the line sets that are connected to the indoor unit, and then I use my soap bubbles and I soap test the flare connections. Flare connections look like this. There's usually a larger and a smaller flare connection at the indoor unit, and there's a larger and a smaller flare connection at the outdoor unit. So there's a total of 4 flare nuts. What do? We soap test each one. We can figure out if we're leaking before we actually open up the valves and start using that mini split. And the most common place for the leak is, of course, you guessed it, the flare connections. So the top mistake that people keep making is they don't perform a nitrogen pressure test. This is cheap insurance right here. And then you don't have to have a technician come out later on down the road, or maybe if you're an installer contractor out there, then you don't have to go back out and have a callback, and then that makes your unit look bad. So don't have that happen. Perform a nitrogen pressure test. The next mistake is a no-no. No vacuum. No vacuum, no warranty. I see this happen, not often, but when it does happen, sometimes you can't actually take and recover the refrigerant, vacuum the unit, nitrogen pressure test, vacuum the unit, and then actually get it working again. Sometimes you have damage of the components. This can void the warranty. This can make it to where you never get anything out of that new mini split that you bought. So always pull a vacuum. What does the vacuum do? Well, after you nitrogen pressure test and you pull a vacuum, you're removing all of the air out of the system, you're removing all of the non-condensables, and you're ensuring that that mini split is going to work properly. I have seen mini splits to where the pressures didn't look right, the temperature split wasn't right, the metering of the refrigerant, the compressor sound was off, and it was because somebody installed a mini split for somebody and they did not pull a vacuum, which to me is crazy. Let me know in the comments if you've ran into this situation where somebody didn't pull a vacuum. Were you able to save the mini split, or did you have to trash it? I would hate for that to happen to anybody. So mistake number 2 is not pulling a vacuum. Please pull a vacuum. Right after you nitrogen pressure test, pull a vacuum. This is another way for you to know if you have a leak, because you can pull that vacuum, use a micron gauge, and let's say pull the 250 microns, and then shut off your gauges and then see, does that rise up out of that vacuum? So another way for you to ensure that you don't have any leaks, and then also to ensure that you have good performance out of your equipment. You don't want to void the warranty, so please use a vacuum. Mistake number 3, we're going to cover 2 mistakes with this one. Pow, pow! So you remember that common problem I find in the field where mini splits are leaking refrigerant? Well, these 2 are going to help you to reduce your chances of having a leak. This one is very important. It's checking your flares. When you get line sets that have flares, they already come pre-flared. Well, if you don't check the flare, it could be that it's got a crack in it, it's really thin, or it doesn't fill up the flare nut. And when you tighten it down, it just slips right out. So checking your flares, making sure that you have a good flare, or do you need to reflare? If you don't know how to use a flaring tool, I'll link a video. I'll put one in the description. Go check out that link to learn how to use a flaring tool. But please check your flares. Manufacturers, they might not do a great job with their flares. So check, make sure it looks good, make sure you're not going to have any leaks. You don't want to spend the time nitrogen pressure testing and then vacuuming, only to have to come back out to figure out that, oh, I didn't check my flare. Well, now I got an issue. Now, the double, the digital torque wrench. Take a look at it. Isn't it beautiful? It tells us the torque value, right? As we're using it, we can match what the manufacturer spec says for the torque value that we need. What does that do? That makes it to where whenever you do nitrogen pressure test, if you went by the torque specs that your manufacturer recommends, then you might not even have to adjust anything because you used a digital torque wrench. Now, let's go to the next one. This mistake right here can cost you. Why? Because it could ruin the wall. The first time you turn on the mini split, it starts building up some water in the pan. If this is not properly installed, then the water goes where? Not out the drain line, not outside, not to the exterior, but it pours down your wall, and you don't want that. So 3 things to remember here. Number 1 is when you are mounting the indoor wall mount air handler's mounting plate, if your drain is going out this side, then make sure that you use that level and you angle towards that side. Why? So you have good fall, you have good drainage. If you're using this side of that indoor pan to connect your drain line, then angle towards that side. That way you have proper drainage. Now, you can move your drain pipe. All you got to do is disconnect it. Some have a little metal clip, some have a screw. You can remove it. What do I suggest? I suggest that the side that you're using to run the line sets out, which is usually this side right here, connect your drain tube to that side. And then use your plug to plug the other side and run your drain and line sets out together. This makes it easier for you to remember that, hey, I'm going to angle towards this side. So that's really important. Another reason is you don't want the drain line from here over to here and then out. What if there's a place behind the unit where that drain is just level and it's holding water, or it's slightly going up? If you're holding water, then it could sweat and you could have water pouring down your wall from that cold water in that against the wall and it's sweating. Another thing to remember, when you're using your hole saw and your drill, make sure that the hole that you drill, make sure that it's not up, make sure that it's not just level, but angled down a little bit. That way, your drain line inside the wall is not like this, holding water. It could sweat. Make sure it's like this. Mistake number 5 and 5.5. We're going to handle clearances and placement. Manufacturers have recommendations for placement and clearances. We're going to start with the indoor wall mount air handler first, and we're going to talk about the most important, which is clearances. Manufacturers have certain clearances. You want to be aware of these clearances so that you have proper performance. And I have seen indoor wall mount air handlers be this close to the ceiling, and that is no bueno. Some manufacturers recommend 4 inches, some 6 inches or 7 inches from the ceiling to the top of this unit. Why does that matter? This is where our filter is. This is our return air. This is where the mini split pulls in its air, and if it doesn't have any air to pull in because the ceiling is right here, then there's not going to be any air come out. So you have to have enough input so you have proper output. So whenever you mount this indoor unit, make sure that you have the manufacturer's specifications for clearances. You know it, you've read the manual, and you have that recommended clearance from the top of this unit to the ceiling. You don't want it right up against the ceiling because you're not going to have any supply air coming out and it's not going to perform correctly. There are clearances from the sides, the bottom, and the top. Be aware there is a certain amount of distance from the ceiling to the top of this unit. To have proper airflow, you got to know those. Placement is super important. I have been in homes where this wall mount air handler is 2 feet from the ground or 3 feet from the ground. Don't do that. What does that cause? Well, when the air hits the floor and then recirculates, then it's going to cause this to short cycle. So mount this up 5 feet. Mount it up to where you're going to have a good throw before you get to any obstruction so that you have proper performance. Another thing I've seen is somebody mount this unit behind their dresser, or mount it behind their cabinet, or mount it behind their TV. Like, you've got an obstruction 1 foot in front of the unit. It hits the obstruction, air recirculates, it thinks it's hit the set point, right? It thinks it's 70 degrees in there, so then it shuts off. So make sure you don't put a TV in front of the mini split, and make sure that you mount it up on the wall. Don't mount it, near the floor, especially if it's a wall mount air handler. Clearances and placement are also very important for the outdoor unit. Let me explain. So we've got a coil right here. This is our outdoor coil, and it's right here on the side and it's on the back. You want to make sure that your side and your back are not right up against the wall. Why? Because we need proper airflow through this coil. Over here, we've got our discharge air. We've got an arrow right here. The air goes through the coil and it goes out this side where our fan and our fan blade is. We want to make sure that we don't block this. Otherwise, we're not going to have proper performance. We're not going to be able to reject or absorb heat like we should be able to if we're blocking these areas. Now, here's another area that we don't need to block. Why? Because we won't be able to actually service the equipment. And another reason we don't want to block this coil is because how do we maintain it? How do we maintenance it? Yearly if it's right up against the wall. So keep that in mind for your clearances. And also, if you're in a mild climate or you're in a cold climate, think about how you mount this outdoor unit. Let's say you're in a cold climate and you get 10, 12 inches of snow. Well, if you just mount this on the ground, then half the coil is going to get covered up with snow. Well, that's not going to help it heat your house very well in the winter. So you may need a stand. You may need to get a stand, or you may need a wall mount bracket, and you may need to mount this up off of the ground. Now, if you're in a mild climate where you don't have but maybe 2 or 3 inches of snow, you might be able to use a 3 or 4 inch pad. So make sure that you're aware of that. You want to make sure that it's not covered up with dirt. What if you set it on the ground or on that pad and you get dirt all over the bottom of your coil? I've had these coils covered with dirt, and then what happened was it developed a leak earlier than it should because of placement. I've actually got a video on how to replace the outdoor coil, as well as indoor coil and maintenance. So if you want to see those videos, I'll drop a link down below. Go check out how to clean a mini split, how to charge, vacuum, recover the refrigerant, and then also full installs. I've got full installs. Now, let's move on. Okay, so that's the top 5.5 or so mistakes that I see happen all the time in the field. Hopefully now you can avoid those. I'm going to give you some more bonus features here, some more bonus tips. One of the mistakes I see is not actually checking your voltage coming to your home that you're installing that mini split on. Why do you need to do this? Because if your voltage is too high and it's not in the range that the mini split needs to operate properly, you could have components fail just in a very short time right after you install that mini split. So installing a buck boost transformer to get that proper voltage is a good idea, or having a line voltage monitor there is a good idea. For instance, I've seen voltages as high as 263, 64, and for a certain brand of mini split I was installing, I didn't know anything about the voltage being too high could cause issues, and my inverter board was damaged shortly after from that high voltage. What did I have to do? I had to lower the voltage. I had to install a line voltage monitor. That way, when our voltage gets too high, it cuts the power off to that mini split. So that's one thing you need to be aware of. Installing a surge protector. That's a great idea. That's a tip I would recommend for you. When you install a mini split, install a surge protector. Why? Because we have those sensitive components. We have the compressor that can be damaged by not having a surge protector in those high spikes, those transients. We have our inverter board that is much more sensitive than that compressor, and that can save you an inverter board. So installing a surge protector is another tip I'd recommend. Sizing. Having the right size mini split means the difference in it actually doing the job that it's supposed to and it lasting as long as it should. So having the right size mini split is super important. What happens if your mini split's too small? If the mini split's too small, it doesn't heat and cool the room properly, the home properly, right? It doesn't even do the job it's supposed to. If the mini split's too big, it doesn't run very long and it short cycles. This decreases the longevity, how long that mini split's gonna last. If you bought a mini split that was too big, well, first of all, you just paid more money than you were supposed to. And then the cost to run that bigger mini split, it just cost you more money. You didn't need it. Even though mini splits are variable capacity and they go from like 30% upwards of 130%, it's still not an excuse to not have the right size mini split. And if it's too big, again, it's gonna short cycle, cut on, cut back off, not run as much. And then that's gonna make it to where it doesn't remove as much humidity. So it's too small, doesn't heat and cool, it's not comfortable. It's too big, it heats and cools, but it's still not comfortable. So make sure you know how to size mini splits. And if you don't, I'll drop a link to a video down below that teaches you how to size mini splits. If you know of a mistake that I didn't cover in this video, drop it down in the comments section. I'll go check it out. If you're having an issue with a mini split, you need some advice, drop that down there too. I'd love to get that comment so I can see that question and then try to help you. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something. If you did learn something, let me know what it was down in the comments. You got a question? Remember, questions can lead to new content. But if you don't have a question, that's okay. Let me know who you are and let me know where you're from. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, smash that bell, ding, so you know what I'm doing. You've been watching HVAC Tips for Technicians / Homeowners. I'm Tad, this was Taddy Digest, and I'll keep you cool if you let me.